Good morning. Let's call the meeting to order, please. Today is Tuesday, November 24th. We're here at the maintenance building for a regular council meeting. If you would, we're going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Ms. Lindsay, call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Here.
Mr. Pollock?
Here.
Ms. Cole?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Keith?
Here. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the minutes from the November 10th meeting. Chair will entertain a motion to accept by consent unless there are corrections or additions.
Make a motion to accept consent.
Second.
A motion is second. Is there any opposition? Let the record reflect the past 5-0. Before we get to department reports, we have one special announcement. Ms. Kimberly, would you please address the group?
Yep. Okay, so here, just publicly inform everyone of our Christmas tree lighting that'll take place on Sunday, December the 6th at 6 o'clock. It'll take place at the Mexico Beach Shopping Center, which is in front of Mango Marley's. The city's currently putting the tree up right now, and then some of our lovely elves will help decorate it. There will be, it's going to be very brief, so to speak, and not just because of COVID and being health conscious and safe. There will be the introduction, and then we'll introduce our tree lighters. And this year's tree lighters are Marty and Lori Blood, who run the post office. So we're very excited to have them as our tree lighters. And then the golf cart parade will come down, and they will loop around, and they'll be carrying Santa. Santa will stay on the fire truck, so there won't be any Santa, kids, none of that. So he'll stay on the fire truck, wave, and then the golf cart parade will exit, and then they'll have a cute little route throughout the city of Mexico Beach. We'll be streaming this live on our Facebook page, with the exception of the golf cart parade. And that's it. So if those who don't want to come out, then be out. We will have it live on our Facebook page, and anybody else who wants to put it on their Facebook as well. So it'll be a nice, sweet way to kick off the holiday season. So that's it. Unless you have any questions.
All right, December 6th. Thank you, Kimberly.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Financial reports. Mario, who's handling that?
Mayor, we're thankful to have the audit crew and Keith here. And Keith's last day was actually last week, and he came over to give us a brief update of what he accomplished over the last 4 or 5 months. So if Keith can do that, then he'll make the introduction to the auditors.
Keith, floor is yours.
Yeah, well, first I want to thank Mario and the commission for allowing me to assist during these transitions. During my time, I think we've made the commission's made some good moves, and in the choice of auditors, and also in the transition thing. I'll talk to Debbie, and I've been working with her for the past month or so to get her up to speed. Of course, she was a city clerk before, so she's well qualified to know the inner workings and what's needed there, but get her up to speed on where we're at specifically with the audit. So these are auditors. This is Wayne and Zach with James Moore. They can probably discuss specifically where we're at in the audit process. We're still very much in the audit process there. And that's for the 9 probably address specifically where we're at with the audit right now. You guys wanna?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So, just to step back a minute and kind of give a big picture of what we're doing. So as Keith mentioned, we're doing the audit as of September 30, 2019, and the primary objective of our audit is to issue an opinion on the financial statements themselves, and that opinion is going to say whether or not the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. But also as part of that audit, we're gaining an understanding of the city's internal controls over finances and related matters. And even though the objective of our audit isn't necessarily to issue an opinion on the internal controls and things like that, if we do come across any issues or have any recommendations, that will be part of our audit as well. Also, since the city has expended a significant amount of federal dollars related to FEMA with the storm and things like that, we're going to be required to do a mini compliance audit over your major programs related to grants and things like that. So that'll be part of our audit as well. And just to follow up a little bit of where we're at with that process, if I had to put a number on it, I would say 50%, give or take. There was, as you guys can imagine, with all the turnover and everything the city's been through, there was a lot of work even getting up to this point with Keith and Monique and the rest of the city team, just getting to the point where we can start our audit. And we've started over the past month or two and made substantial progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done, although we're picking up speed, I would say that. As far as where we're going to be at with any comments and recommendations, I'll say there's probably not going to be any surprises as far as everything the city's been through. There's definitely been a lot of turnover, and then everything with the hurricane. We'll probably have some recommendations as far as internal controls and things like that. However, I wouldn't say there's going to be any major surprises there. So does anyone have any questions?
When do you expect completion?
So I may be a little ambitious, but we're gonna do everything we can to get the work substantially complete by the end of the holidays. And when the actual date of our report, may depend on some things with how everything's going with management and things like that. Although everyone's been great as far as helping us find the things we need to find. It's not always easy. Sometimes we're having to find things in the attic or wherever, but we are moving along, and I would like to see us be substantially complete by the end of the holidays.
Yeah, and we're absolutely committed to make sure that as anything is ready for us, because a lot of the time has just been as Keith and everyone's been working through trying to kind of rebuild the pieces of the financial year. As things are ready, we're fully committed to make sure we get on it from our side as soon as possible, because I know the state's chomping at the bit to get the audit, with it being past the deadline and so forth. So we're absolutely going to do everything we can on our side to push it as much as we can to ensure that, again, like Wayne said, hopefully before Christmas would be the absolute target. That would mean everything's okay enough with the state and so forth.
All right. Thank y'all very much. We know that's our finances, at least the track following them, have been challenging. We're going to get there. Keith, thank you.
Thank you.
You've been you stepped in. I don't know if you knew how big a mud hole that was, but it doesn't matter now. You've waded through it. We thank you for it.
I feel comfortable we shifted the tide in the right direction, that's for sure, so thank you.
Right. All right. Any more questions or comments on the audit? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Fire department, Chief Sandy, we're up there. You go.
Nothing significantly new, still getting a number of phone calls in regards to key boxes, made contact with all those individuals. We will be putting those in starting probably after Thanksgiving, so next week. I've also been to 5 or 6 different properties to aid people with their smoke detectors, and unfortunately in every property I've been to I've found issues with smoke detectors. So I would plead with everybody to check their smoke detectors. They are your first line of defense if anything was to happen in your house. It's a very simple thing to do, but it's also a very simple thing not to do. So please do check your smoke detectors, those of you that are listening and or here. And I'm happy to go and visit anybody else who wants me to check theirs for them if they're not capable of doing it themselves. Other than that, everything is good, thanks, sir.
Appreciate it. Questions? Anybody? Fire? Lieutenant, you got anything for us today?
Nothing special, we don't have any rash or crimes going on or anything like that. No major rings, working in the area or stuff like that, but, you know, we're staying vigilant, staying on patrol.
Awesome. I don't see a building, but do we have a,
I will say this, we've had a flurry of building permits. I would say that last week I probably signed off on about 12 DOs. This week I have another 12 DOs, so literally in the last 2 weeks, I've seen probably 20 to 30 development orders come through. So again, a flurry of activity.
I consider that to be good for our town. And the RV park is open, I know y'all seen some RVs sitting there, so
So
that's,
big
that
RVs.
just should make us all feel good. Code, Kathy?
Yes, sir. I, went on ahead and did a map and a list of the RVs that we have.
Everybody gets one of these shared.
Each person.
It's just, I've done like a little explanation off on the side as to what's going on. Some of them I didn't remove, but I just put that they applied for building permits or development orders. Some of them, you'll look, you may go out there and they're not there. Some of them have moved since I've done this map. So the, got a lot of calls and conversations regarding the RVs that people have on their lots.
How many of these are in violation?
Well, here tells you,
How do I tell that?
this is the dates of expiration. So
Those
some of
are
these
in
right here,
violation, meaning they
these are
didn't
not-
have a home, they never had a home, they just had an RV there.
right, so most of these are all, these are all the ones that don't have a home. So it's, and some of them have now applied for the permits, and then these right down here, you can see the expiration dates aren't until December, January, and I think there's one or two in February. But we've gotten, I think it's helped push Mario getting the DOs with having these letters we sent
Well,
out
they
to
may
them.
be, the DOs that you'll be getting in may be some on this list.
Correct.
I got you. Right. What about the blank ones that don't say anything? Like these that don't have
These
anything?
right here, some of these, like, this gentleman right here,
Mhm.
he's a, homestead. So I just kept them on there because they are an RV, but if they're homesteaded, and I talked to almost every one of them, and they're in the process of getting ready to go. But most of them,
What do you mean a homestead?
It's a primary
it's a
home.
primary residence.
If you have a homestead exemption, it means it's your primary home. It's one of the ways that we can look at stuff and, you know, just through the property appraiser's website, see if they're.
Okay, so they have a camper on their homesteaded property, but they don't have any permits to rebuild.
Correct.
Are they working with insurance?
They are. Some are working with insurance, some are working to get, their building permits. They've been talking to different, contractors and things like that.
But if they're working with insurance, do you have a note along those?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Question for you, what about the ones that never had a house to start with and they bought a lot, bulldozed the trees down and moved in an RV? You mean you got one 3 blocks from here, you got one on 5th Street, there never was a house. It was tree lot.
They've all been sent notices.
Are they allowed to stay there or do they have to move into an RV park since they never had a house?
Well, the one, if you're talking about that one on Fifth Street up there, the last I heard from him, that his wife called and told me that he had COVID, it wasn't able to come down, but I've gone on ahead and resent him another violation, because that's been about a month ago, 2 months ago. So wait and see if we get a response back from him, but that RV will have to go, because there's nothing has been turned into the building department for building permits.
I mean, the city, your ordinances right in there say you can't have an RV on your property unless you have a house under construction. These people never owned a house, they had an empty lot with trees on it.
You know, it said, I think she said we're citing them, we're sending them a violation notice, and now they'll,
Well, they're gonna have to move to the RV park until.
they're gonna have to, I don't know where they have to move, but they can't stay there.
Okay.
I mean, that's the rule. But in order to get them to move, we have to send them a citation. And have to, now that, something like that, does that go through the special master? Surely that doesn't require, there's nothing to have a special master out there.
Only if there's an appeal. Anyone.
Where there was never a house, and they just have an RV there?
Everyone's allowed to request
Okay.
a hearing on violation.
I got you.
If they don't request one at all.
Oh. All right, what about the one on 15th Street that has a camper inside the fence? Was that on here?
No, sir?
Not on here.
Nope.
Some reason that it's not on here.
The reason it's not? They're not in violation.
Not in violation. So if a camper's hooked up or sitting in a driveway, it's not in violation because we don't know that it's not hooked up. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's hooked up to electric, but you have to in order to maintain your camper.
Not hooked up to water and sewer?
No, sir.
Well, then we need to write something that's, well, I guess we're gonna address that later.
That's what one thing I was gonna ask, is that open for discussion now, or we wanna wait till the end of the?
No, go ahead. What you got? While
I've
we're on
got a
the code.
specific case, if this is okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's, Dan and Catherine Taylor, and they're 105 27th Street. So they've got an active, it's almost expired, but they've got an active permit to have an RV on their lot. They have their primary residence here and will again once they have it built, before the storm. And so in June 2nd, they got their permit for their camper, and it expires, I think, December 2nd, something like that. They didn't move it here until October 13th, until we got pretty heavy in the design. And this is a DEP lot, so a little more design going into it than just house plans. So they moved it down here October 13th, because we were starting to have design meetings, and they were paying $100 to rent, whether it's hotel room or something, every time they came down. So started the design process October 13th. It's going through now. I submitted the letter of no objection development order to Gina for the letter that goes with the DEP permit application. So that has been submitted. We should have DEP permits and structural plans completed by the end of December and submitted to the building department for a permit in January. They live in Huntsville, Alabama, so if they were to come get their camper, they would pull their camper back to Huntsville for a month and pull it right back when they got a permit in January. So what they were asking for is if they could just get an extension until mid-January to get their permit in hand and start construction, because they'll still be down, because we still got DEP type meetings and things over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So they'll still be coming down between now and the middle of January, and they wouldn't have anywhere to stay. And I guess it's worth mentioning again, this was their primary residence, and will be again once it's built. And they're just asking for that little extension through January so that they can get the DEP permit back that has been submitted to the city already with a development order, and get the actual building permit.
That's 105 27th Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
because they have drawings in the works.
I would assume that would just be something you would handle.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Thank you. Question for code?
Kathy, one that was mentioned, and I don't see anything else on it as far as the difference, is a La Lane. Supposedly, they have they got the building permit, or are they still trying to get one?
No, it's been turned in.
It's been turned in? Okay. I think that's one.
See you later.
I'd like to
Take care.
talk about.
All right, so are we good with this list? Anybody, any questions, comments? The only other question I have that's not related to campers, are those properties that still remain, while not being campers, properties that remain, they look exactly like they did on 10/10 of 2018. How are we proceeding with those? Do we have, are we down to a list of those,
Of the demos,
of the properties that have not been cleaned up? Example, Highway 98, the old Grove property, the triplex next to it that still continues to sit there, or the duplex that sits on the side of the road just like it looked.
yeah, I've talked to him, I've sent him violations, he sent me a lengthy email about being ill. But he's ready for another violation to be sent out to me.
Are we talking about Dan? Or are we talking about the duplex?
The duplex.
What about the Grove?
The group, last time I talked to her, he was gonna come in and start cleaning this, the place up, and they did remove the boat, they have cut the grass. She said they did have an engineer come, they think that, they said that the building is structurally okay, they just need to get rid of the, front aluminum part.
What's the percentage on that building? It don't look like structurally okay to me, but.
Well, let me ask the council, when is it, what is a time, or is there any, is everyone here sort of processing in their own mind, when do we reach the point and say, how long does it continue to sit?
As far as I'm concerned, it's now. This long, somebody had to have something done. I got a situation over there close to the house, it's got pilings up here. How long are we gonna just leave that up like that? Most of these are people that are not full residents, and they just, outside our mind, and, it's not out of our sight, not out of our mind, so as far as I'm concerned, if nothing's been done, we need to do something.
Are those the people on this, some of those people on this list that you're talking about?
No.
This is an RV
No,
list.
this one's
This is RV.
We're talking about structures that remain unaddressed.
Kathy, do you have a list of those?
I do, I have my spreadsheet that I work off of.
Can you
Why
disseminate that spreadsheet?
don't we get all of this together and I think for the first year we ought to, and Nick, help me here, on a structure that where we cite them, our choices remain, we go and remove it ourselves, or we cite them through a fine process.
Our first option is to tell them to remove it. We don't necessarily expect that to work on a lot of these. So then our options after that, it's not an either or, it can be both. But city goes and does the work itself. But the city will have to fund that work, and will then work on recovering that money over the next few years.
Kathy, do you have a list of the structures, addresses, and owners that are standing that are,
So I have a demo list, yes, sir.
okay, is a demo list structures?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why don't for the next meeting, you could give us that before the meeting, let us have a chance to look at it. So we can see what we're looking at, and if we have questions, just for time's sake, can get with you, but if you could give us that.
Okay.
I know, one of them that especially that Kathy's been working on, can't get anything out of anybody, is over near Jerry's place, the Welcome Center. Two.
Yep.
There's two over there.
Two over there. And,
Same man on it.
But, now, is it, some of these we've sent, I mean, we're so far along, we just hadn't done anything, I mean, we've done something, haven't we?
Yes, sir. Sent out notices, I found them, living down in Tampa, I've sent them down there, all the envelopes keep coming back as unclaimed.
All right, so what happens there, Nick? We get, nobody, I mean, once we've told them to,
Our obligation is to provide notices at their official address of record, which I think we have. And we don't have to absolutely make certain that we get responses. We proceed, we go ahead and accrue the fines, we can file an order showing that we're gonna lien the property of those fines, provide notice, or we can proceed toward, demolition. Now, if we did that, we'd want to re-notice that that's something we're considering.
Right.
So I don't know that we've done that.
well, we may be, that may be what we're forced into. As much as none of us probably, I mean, obviously, nobody wants the city to be out that money. Does that become a tax lien?
That one can be. If something that improves the property, provides a benefit to the property, we can set up to be a special.
Do we have that on the books to do that?
We do.
Okay.
There's a couple steps to actually implement it, but we have. it
Okay,
on the books.
then I would suggest between now and the next meeting that our code officer make sure that the letter we send out now is what we're sending out all that's necessary. When you said we have to notify them to move it, have we done that?
I don't know exactly what the letters have said, but
Could we, Mario, could
Yeah,
we
we'll
could we
coordinate
coordinate with
between
everybody so that at the next meeting that we know where we stand with what we've done, and, cause I think it's just time to start
yeah.
putting that in place.
When I mentioned we might send an additional notice, we're gonna consider demolition. I don't even think our code will say that. That's just the smart thing to do, because that's when
Okay.
the stakes have risen a lot.
Well, please put the house next to me that I'm still looking at on the list.
Well, we hope it's on the list. That's why until we see the list, we don't know. You know, last time we discussed this, there were some people here that said, hey, what about so, you know, they popped up that there were other places besides what was on the list. We need a very comprehensive list of the structures that are remaining, that have had no response and are still standing just like they were after the storm.
What, Nick, to you, my question is, if no contact with these people, if you, they keep sending letters back, I know we can do something, but I figured we'd have to get in touch with them somehow. They do pay taxes somehow or another, they just avoid the letters, or how do we go about that on the legal side?
We have other options available, like newspaper notice, but we're not required to use those options. When we're not getting a response, sometimes it could be that they've moved, they haven't updated their address, they're actually not getting it. Other times though, they're just ignoring things.
They send it back, they just won't sign it, to get the rest of the letter.
That happens sometimes.
That's the problem too in my neighborhood, they just won't answer, no phone calls, no response, nobody.
But it would be wise, you mentioned they must be paying the taxes, well, we should look. Because that would be a good indication that they actually do receive mail at Yes.
Somebody say it.
But that, we do perceive like we're gonna link, tackling, even though there's no contact with it. We get sort of scared, to me, that we don't, to just go over there and start tearing the man's house down, even though I want it down, and we have no contact with him.
Right, and that's where I was suggesting would be very careful and make sure that what we send says that that's what we're considering, if we have any other avenues, because when you're talking about $100 fine, it's not a big deal either way, but if they're thinking their damaged house is still worth a lot of money and they don't want to tear it down, that becomes a bigger issue.
I have asked Kathy to send letters to these addresses without them being certified. Just send it in a regular envelope with a regular name so that this person doesn't think that it's something that they don't want to receive from the city of Mexico Beach. And if that doesn't make it back, at least we think we've gotten one below their radar and got them to look at it. So, but again, those citations, when we put them on the tax roll, and granted it's gotta be in the next tax roll that they'll get it, but eventually those citations will get to them if it doesn't get to a level of us demolishing the house before then.
And the other option as far as trying to provide information to people that we have on our books is posting notices at the property, but there's no telling on these kinds of properties whether anyone's actually ever coming by.
Well, I would just like to have us a path that staff recommends, here's how we proceed, showing that whatever letter or whatever wording in the letter needs to be, what we've already done. If we could just review all of that so that we don't, I mean, when we say we're ready to go, that we're ready to go. Okay?
Okay.
Please.
Do we think it's smart for us to go ahead and get somebody to go around and give us an idea of what it's gonna cost to demo those things? Because, you know, we tell them that we're fixing a demo and it's gonna be $20,000, they got a chance to come do it cheaper or whatever. And we really need to know what we're gonna be spending if we're gonna decide to start demolishing them. I mean, we don't know what it's gonna cost.
Well, at the time we make that call, we can send them a letter, tell them what we're gonna do, we don't have to tell them we're gonna do it on a certain date at a certain time.
Well, I know, but I'd kinda like to know what all that's gonna cost, so we can know, I mean, are we just gonna threaten them and we don't actually have money to do it, or that's what
Well, I
I'm
would
saying?
certainly hate, for me, I would hate for the city in our financial condition to spend any money on somebody else's property with a tax lien. But it appears that that's the business, the hand we're gonna be playing if we're gonna clean our city up. So I would be prepared, if it was reasonable, to say, we'll clean them up and we'll lien it and that's all we can do. But if we don't clean up, we've reached the point of now that, I mean, those folks that are rebuilding there along 98 or Jerry's neighborhood or any other neighborhood where these structures are, they don't want to rebuild and see that junk laying there. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. So I think we have a responsibility, as much as I would be hard stressed to want to pay for it. That may be where we are.
And there's no FEMA money or anything left for this kind of stuff?
We've gone every route to do those. What's happening with most of these locations is that they were not a primary home, therefore FEMA won't help. If and when it comes down to the city doing the demolition, we will have to bid it. We have to follow a process, just like everything else that we do. We'll have to put it out on the street to get a price from all the people that do demolition to tear this down so that we can compare apples to apples, so that when that individual comes back and says, well, I could have done it cheaper, we can say, we followed our charter for advertising and getting it done the cheapest way that the city is able to do it.
Well, I think when we do that, I think we need to look at it all and let them bid on all of them, so we.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We
every
bid
one of them.
Yeah, I think we still have some of our one or two emergency contractors that are available, but I think at this point, so much time has passed, we probably should bid out these individual projects, probably get better prices.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. Okay,
the tax bill for the house, the, Welcome Center in Maryland. The guy's paid all his taxes until this year so far, and the tax bills just came out.
Right.
That trailer, I mean, it's cut in half, it's a piece of garbage, sitting there as an eyesore. How much money have you fined this guy so far? Are you sending him like $100 a week, $1,000 a month? Within a few months, that's plenty of money to clean the damn place up and put it on their tax bill. I mean, something's gotta be done.
That's what we're saying, right?
I know, but the 2 years now, I've been coming to every one
Well,
of these meetings.
we try, you know, we had some weak hearts and we were trying, or I was, I think the council in general was, hey, people will do the right thing. Well, it's obvious that they will not. Those that are left are just, so, we hear you.
Okay.
We hear you.
Can I ask you something else?
Sure.
Houses that are being rebuilt, some of them, I mean, still have blue sides on them and everything else, and the people come and live in them, they leave, they come back, they're not even touching them. And they're just sitting there. I got the one at the end of my street, it's looked exactly the same now for 6 months. And they come back, they spend a month, they leave, they come back, it's like, you look out the window and you see blue tarps on each side of them. How long is that stuff
Well,
like
the
that
building,
gonna
now the
stay?
Florida Building Code says if you are in the process of, I mean, there's no time limit for
So you
building
can-
your house.
You can just keep replacing tarps for the next 20
Well,
years.
me and you might not do that, but there is no, quote, you know, if you show progress on your house, it could be putting in one window every 3 months. There is no defined length of time. But if we have some of those, why don't you take the address and ask the code people, are they, you know, I mean, not his code, but Florida, building department. And just see, hey, have they asked for any inspections? Has there been any, what are they doing? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just to see what they tell you, if there is anything being done.
And my welcome center is the one that we can't get in touch with. The man's changed addresses, I know, 3 times, so it's one of them we just can't pin you down, so we're gonna have to do something. I don't know what.
Well, I think this discussion has given staff and Nick the direction to say, show us, give us a list, make sure we're sending these letters out, whatever we have sent, review it, and I think we're ready to ramp it up to whatever we gotta do.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
I've had email correspondence with the owner prior, when it was under the FEMA process, and I'm wondering what the legalities are as far as emailing.
So we certainly should resend what we've been sending by email.
Okay.
We've already done the step that is legally required, but any other thing we can do that is likely to get the information out, get us some communication, we should do.
They were in the process of trying to get FEMA to clean up, but because they were rentals, these
Right,
particular properties were not, FEMA would not touch them, so.
We'll put that on the agenda for next meeting to
Right.
discuss just a separate.
I'll make sure they get the
Make sure
letters.
that's on there so that we
emailed.
sort of get.
Yes, we can always use other methods. We have a phone number, an email address, a Facebook account. We can always use those. We just have to also use the required methods,
Okay.
which is generally certified now.
Okay, moving on.
I'd like to give kudos to Skylar. She has been helping Kathy with the graphics. So the map that you see that correlates to the spreadsheet is a Skylar project. So she's been helping with quite a few things, and I wanted to make sure that she got some credit.
There's a lot of piecing together.
I don't want Kathy's job.
I don't either.
You got it.
Yeah, you do a good job. Good job.
Wawa Lane on this sheet.
Yeah.
What? Okay, I see it now. I see it. Okay. All right, Tommy, you're up.
Good morning, council.
Morning.
First of all, wanted to let Mr. Bobby know that we have all the Christmas ornaments now put back up on the utility poles. That was completed yesterday, so we will have them lit up here in we're working with Kimberly now, she's stated to get the Christmas tree put up, the city Christmas tree down at, where Parker Realty used to be, where our general location is for all that, so we'll have that done probably by tomorrow also. A couple of things I wanted to say on here, we took the dumpsters that was at Parker Park and, down at the boat ramp, Troy and Nick has bear-proofed those. They went a little bit better on the design, instead of having those long rods in them to keep the bears out, they've got one little hasp now and a clip. But the problem we're still having is people are using those dumpsters and they're only utilizing half of it. They're putting the garbage in the front part of it, and when it gets full, they're leaving the lids up and just piling it up on top. So, if anybody's listening, we'd ask that if you use those dumpsters, please utilize all the dumpster and close the lids back and put the clips back on there. Because if you don't lock them up, it's not gonna do any good to keep the bears out. They're still gonna get in there and mess with the garbage as usual. But,
So I mean, if we can put a small sign up over there,
we're
even
in
if
the
you just
process
do,
of doing
you know,
that. We are.
give them some direction.
Yep, having Pam get some made up, and we're gonna have them put down there, please. These are for the citizens to use, and if they don't, it's not doing us any good if they don't utilize them, so we need to get that took care of. Also, we're still working on the stump grinding throughout the city. We've got some stumps over on Florida Avenue. We're still getting the rest of the ones at Parker Park. It's looking better every week. We're getting those ground up, getting the parks back like they used to be. So we're working on that. Of course, I handed y'all a handout that has a list of everything we've been doing. Also, Kevin's working on a job, so I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all his report for the utility department. This past month of October, we had 155,580 pounds of garbage that we took out of the city. Also, the water, 4-inch water main going through Oleander. They have all the houses tied onto that now. They're actually starting to pave where the cutouts in the streets. They're fixing those as we speak. And after the holidays, they're gonna be starting to pave Oleander and get that wrapped up. Other than that, I left y'all a sheet for Kevin also. So, other than that, everything's going as usual, cutting grass, cleaning up, taking care of whatever needs to be took care of throughout the city.
Thank you, Tom.
Y'all doing a good job of it.
Yeah, how about the signs, when they come?
Mr. Mario asked me to give him an update on that. I have called the place 4 times. I called them this morning and asked for an update, and got to the point of just not even answering the phone now. I left him a message, the company in Florida, LLC Signs down in South Florida, that has them. The last time I spoke with him was one day last week. He was supposed to be getting me up some information as to how long it would be before they're ready. He said that right now they're kind of having a problem getting aluminum stuff because of the COVID-19. And he said he would call me back, but I still have not heard from him. He said that, it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. But he was gonna give me a better figure than that, but like I said, he hasn't called me back. So I have about 4 calls into him trying to find that out for y'all. And as soon as I can hear from him, I will let y'all know. That's what we stand on.
They was gonna end up going to a local art class and get those little signs.
I'm telling you, we could have it every Wednesday night. Everybody meet here and draw a sign. So, thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, sir.
I just want to you and everybody that the little luncheon was awesome.
Yes, I want to thank everybody. We had our,
Well done.
yes, last Friday we had our Thanksgiving lunch. I want to thank everybody that came, everybody that donated for it. It turned out really well. All the employees was really grateful for that. And like I explained in the meeting, they've done a wonderful job this year through a lot of adversity. With all the pandemic and all, they come to work and done everything that we've asked them to do, and the city's looking better every day. So, good. Thank you for all that's involved in that, and for all their hard work.
You got it.
Mayor, if I could add to Kevin's report, Kevin has brought me 3 items that he would like to purchase that will help, basically the city. Again, what we don't have is we don't have backup equipment for the equipment that is necessary. to give you an idea, the data flow system that runs our sewer lift stations, if one goes down, it takes 2 or 3 days to get one ordered and then delivered, so, you know, it has the potential to have to run on a separate pump for a week or so. If we could purchase 2 of these pumps, the total cost is $5,861. We did have savings from MX1, so we should be able to use the savings from MX1 to pay for this, since it is still sewer related and it's equipment. So if the council's okay, I'd like to release him to do that. I have another item, which is the sewer line that runs through all of Tyndall's Air Force Base from MX1 is a 14-inch line. That is a oddball size. The fact that it's an oddball size quite often means that it takes a week or 2 just to get a length of pipe. It would be much safer if we had in stock, and he's proposing 6 sticks of 10-foot line, so we would have 60 feet of line and then a couple of couplings and T's and just the normal stuff that you would need for that, again to the tune of $5,908, again purchased through FEMA savings from MX1. And then lastly, at MX1, one of the pumps that was there is having electrical problems. The cost to get it back up and running is $3,770. So I just wanted to mention that we were going to utilize savings from the MX1 project to purchase these items that are sewer related to keep us rolling. Council's okay.
Questions?
I do. Cause I did it, this kind of did it. Mario, I thought what did we do with all them pumps that we were supposed to get rebuilt?
These are the pumps that we're talking about rebuilding. We're rebuilding this one for $3,770. The other pump is in worse shape, and I think that one was about $14,000 to rebuild. So on that one, I'm not ready to kick it off. We want to check a little bit more on it, but for this one, we would like to get it rebuilt.
But we had more than one pump. I mean, we replaced a bunch of them pumps, I thought we did.
It had 3 pumps.
That's MX1, I'm talking about the nice pumping station, the one on what, didn't we replace a lot of them pumps? Can we rebuild them cheaper than we can buy one? I know $14,000 probably doesn't about what it costs them more, but if we can rebuild, sometimes you can rebuild them fairly cheap and they're just as good, so.
This is for rebuild. These are not new pumps. It's a 75 horsepower pump. I asked David yesterday, is $14,000 a reasonable cost to rebuild? And he said that one is typically about a $40,000 pump. So I'm assuming that $15,000 is a good option. But when that price came in that high, I want to have other options on that one. But on this one for $3,700, I was hoping to release them to rebuild that one.
And we are taking bids on this, right? We're not just picking one individual. I think some of this might be a little high, I'd like to look at it myself, but we need it, don't get me wrong, and I want him to have it, especially that 14-inch pipe. That is a oddball size pipe, and to get the valve, you really have to pay more.
On the 14-inch pipe, he has one price here for $8,139, and then his low bid at $5,908. So he did get multiple bids on the pipe. On the pump, we sent it to the group that did the work for MX1 so that we have continuity on the work. And the data flow system is a proprietary, it's the system that runs our equipment, so we can't get an alternate price, unfortunately.
My opinion, I mean, I say yes on mine. Do it, because we need it. We're showing these stuff in stock to keep, you have to have a breakdown to fix it. But all them pumps that we had, I think, the ones that sort of fairly reasonable, like the 3,700 to rebuild it, we need to rebuild. I know we got a stack of them, because I seen them out back. And have them ready to when we need them, instead of when they break down, then we have to send them off. And that's my opinion. I'd rather have what we need. I don't like having to be broke down and waiting on something. If you can, I'll see it. Thank you.
That's the idea behind these things, is to have some stock in-house so that we don't have to wait for things.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the MX1 pumps are different from the
other legislative.
From the
Yes.
I don't stockpile of MX1 pumps?
Who the hell
It,
put
it, it runs on two, and it has
Yeah,
a
three.
third that is a spare, but we do actually have one extra one, and that's the one that would cost $14,000 to repair. So that's why just, if we can get that third one online for $3,770, it would make sense. That way we have the two that normally operate and then the
Gotcha.
extra.
Okay, is everybody, is there any other discussion? Okay, then we're good to go.
Yes, sir.
Nick, is that good to go with you?
So,
I mean, the manner in which, I mean, we need a motion for each one,
these were, they were all 3,000 or so. I mean, Mario has.
13,000 total.
It's $3,770 for the pump repair. It's $5,908 for the pipe, to have in stock, and then $5,861.
all within his spending limit.
Right, they're all different projects, different companies, so, he has spending authority to do those projects. If you wanna put belts and suspenders on it, you're welcome to make a voice motion to
Okay.
confirm
Is
that.
there any opposition to any of those?
No.
Okay. David,
Sir,
come on.
good morning.
Good morning.
I passed out my material before the meeting, so you should have from you. This one's yours is on the corner. Right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, let me borrow. I don't know.
Need one?
I
You next.
got it. I do have it.
Take a look back.
Apologize.
Here you go, Dave, you want one back? Read this total. Thank you.
May I have a copy of this?
Yes, please do.
Sharon needs one.
It's probably on your desk at the very beginning.
Yes, it
It looks
was.
like this.
There was only one
Yeah.
play on the table.
Yeah, I covered none of it already.
Stick.
About 10 copies.
It is.
Start with the citywide streets, and I do have to make a correction, but the project has been sent for bid advertisement. Tentative bid opening date will be January 11th, that's 2021, not 2020. The citywide sidewalks and parking, we had the bid open last week, and the notice of awards should be on today's agenda. Dedicated beach landscaping, right now, we're going through a cost review of the design, just to make sure that we're gonna come in under the $475,000, the grant allows. And once we get that, we'll have to submit to DOT for a 90% review, that's part of their grant application package. Once we get through that, we should be good to go to send out for bid and proceed.
When's that gonna happen?
We should have the cost review design complete, he said today, and so I'll have it.
I received it earlier this morning, so, and it came in with below the budget.
So we'll.
Then we submit it to DOT.
Yes, sir, we'll submit it to DOT, if not, before everyone leaves for the break this week, we'll do it next week.
And then we hear back from them, and then we put it on the street.
Yes, sir, as long as they don't have any major issues with it.
Okay, it won't come back to this table for any, that process will be done internally, correct?
Yes, sir.
I mean, we have approved and done everything,
The design, yes, sir.
unless the review is, and I guess you've already said the review says it's in budget. So it's gonna hit the street.
The drawings have not changed, it's still the same drawings that we have in the council meeting, so.
And we're not doing
the only thing that's
road
not
board.
shown there is the irrigation.
Okay, the irrigation's coming from the 8th Street tap.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
We did look at providing a tap further east to make the piping a little bit smaller, but the fact that DOT did that storm hardening design for the roadway, it makes it cost prohibitive to put a pipe east of Second. So unfortunately, because of that, I think the design is a 6-inch line from Second Street all the way to the east end in order to make the volume large enough that we don't lose pressure by the tail end of it. We'll get you a copy of the design so that you can
I sure won't see.
take a look at it. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm I'm just processing. DOT says it, the cost review has been completed and we're good. DOT's gonna get it end of the week or first of the week. And then when is that relatively short review or?
I expect 30 days, but I talked to the project manager, she said it could be a couple of weeks to 30 days.
And I'll talk to Carter Johnson and tell him that anything that he can do to expedite it will help us, because if we can do this planting during the dormant season, it's gonna be better for our plants.
Okay. Go ahead.
The boat ramp expansion, if you look on the second page that I submitted you, there's just a little color coded map. We have a grant to do some design work at the boat ramp. What you see here, what's in red, that's concrete hatch, but what's in red is existing. And then right next to it, there's enough seawall to do basically an identical ramp match of what we have, so we could do a double ramp and then a single ramp, with the darker blue that's right next to it. Or we could just go in with one ramp or two ramps, but this is the most we could get out of it. It basically fits the seawall perfect. And then what you have off to the right in the darker or the cyan color, that's what's proposed in the marina plans right now. That's the pavilion and the fish cooler station. What we would have to do is shift that whole thing about 55 feet to the east to fit the new ramp set. So there wouldn't be a conflict with the trucks and trailers pulling out and the new design. So what I like is if you guys can just kind of give us a nod of which way you want to proceed, if you want to proceed with all three or just putting in two ramps, one ramp.
Was any thought put into the fact that when, these guys that got these 34 and 36 and 39 foot boats, when they put them in, their trailer can't make that last hump without dragging. Have we lengthened this side?
As far as the ramp into the water?
Well, at the top, so in other words, when you're coming up, the ramp goes down, levels out, and goes down again. So at that very top where it hits the gravel, that's the spot where all of those really long boats are dragging. And so if that top section could be lengthened or rounded or rolled or something.
Gotta take some of the edge off of the.
Yeah,
The transition is so steep that they bottom out right there,
Right.
so if you can.
6 foot that would, but they don't have to they got blocks there, you can tell when I park the boat, they come out these 4 inches, just 4 inches, and they stick them up under the back of the truck, and they didn't have to go but 18 inches, so it's not much, but they do, it sound like it's tearing up something now when they back in trailer down in there.
and really a simple roll or another small angle so that it only falls over a little bit at a time. It doesn't go from the peak straight down.
The easiest would probably just stick a grinder out there and kind of put a little bit of.
Well, I don't know that we need to do anything to the existing one if we prepare the large one.
Oh, okay, just.
The new one.
That's right.
The new one, then we'll know that those big boats and we can put a sign, 36, whatever, large.
Do you understand where the issue is?
Yes, yes.
And David, we can also put some more lime rock out in front of it, because if you increase the grade out in front of the ramp, it'll decrease the angle of the transition.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Let's talk about a minute, this boat cooler, the fish cooler and the pavilion. Right now, the cooler is sitting over here on this red concrete, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had fish cleaning station sort of behind, or on
The very east end.
the east end, like that way,
So
be outside.
we would move all of that to the east side of the pavilion.
Yes, sir, and that has been the design for some while, and I think the logic behind that was to move those boats that are coming in and starting to clean fish further from that boat ramp so they don't create a traffic jam, so, What you do see in this plan is, this is the slightly smaller building than what was advertised and priced, because this smaller building meets our cost and gives us a little bit of buffer, but it is still comparable to what we had in the past.
Is it undercover?
Yes, sir. I'm talking about the pavilion itself.
No, it's a fish cleaning undercover.
The fish cleaning station, it looks like there is a structure over top of it from what I can tell from this drawing, yes, sir.
And then there's a void, then there's a restaurant.
Correct.
Just a little, the blue drawing in front, Dave, I can't see with my glasses on.
What's the
What is
square?
it?
The
Oh,
solid
that's
square?
just the handicap parking.
Oh.
When it printed out, it came.
Okay, I sure can't believe how big it is. You park there and then you can walk. I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only thing, I don't know. Oh, I do like the way that you said this right here would fit our design of the length. And I know you're gonna, I looked at it and I said, and the 19-foot, when we parked all the boats, you know, you can't put a big boat in there, but we do have a lot of small boats and a lot of jet skis, and that, to me, instead of taking the place of that one that we used to have, that little bitty one, over here where 34 foot's gonna be, is when you break down or when you have problems, you have a place to put your boat and not block up the traffic to people come in. And I think that 16, I was thinking, thank you for showing this to me, I think that 16-foot inland would solve that problem, because not every boat's gonna run, and everybody has wives and children, and they out here waiting and got the line backed up, well, they can get over here now and keep our line going. So I like it myself. I mean, I think the design is very well.
Yeah, I don't think we need to take the 19-footer out either. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
I think.
Kayaks launch and all that stuff.
Yeah, we'll just run that dock a little bit shorter so they have room at that
Correct.
angle there.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's just, or come, you know, I can get a trailer that's back up in the hill show you, he has to put the block up on it every time.
The one thing that I noticed on this drawing is the parking layout actually goes into the current drive aisle. So I'm gonna get with Dewberry and look at some of this parking. So that perpendicular parking that goes out into that drive aisle has the potential to
You might
hurt
even,
an awful
you
lot.
might even could angle it. If you
Yeah,
angle it,
so,
the correct way, it might work.
We're gonna tweak that parking a little bit.
Yeah, because those last two would be an issue probably.
Okay?
So we're good with.
We're good, just do not forget what Darryl talked about, that is an issue.
Right.
That is an issue.
Angle pulling out.
That angle of the pad.
Long one.
Okay?
And then the jetty, MRD submitted a conceptual design and cost analysis. I submitted that to Mario early this morning.
I have those here, and what I've got a couple things, and please note, these will be in the conference room for anyone to look at, but it gives us 3 different options for.
Is this the east jetty?
This is the jetty, so this first drawing is basically what we have today. The second one is armoring what we have today. The next one is adding a little bit, and then the third one is adding a bit and adding a bend to it. But again, we can look at this in detail in a separate meeting.
But are we talking east jetty only, or are we talking west jetty too?
Both.
Both, okay. Okay, question for David?
Would this be a good time to, who's doing the inspection on the walk-uppers?
We have, Jeff Hyman with our company does the inspections on the wall.
Yeah, because, I mean, some of those rails, the bolts are not even tight. I mean, when are we gonna know? 'Cause we're not gonna pay him until, let me tell you, since day one, they have done such a poor job building those things. And you can't, at this point, I don't know how easy it would be to argue workmanship, although I've always, workmanship to me means something too, and if it's poor workmanship, then they need to redo something.
Right.
But literally, you can go down through there and you can look, and there's so many of those rails that look like a snake. They're crooked, and they got shims. Look, I've been building all my life. You don't shim something unless it's an absolute emergency. They got shims to make them straight. They got so many shims in them. They've got shims that are stacked up almost an inch high with a void behind them holding the rail up. It was so poorly built. All of those 4x4s, has anyone else seen this? I know you've seen it.
Tommy and I went out yesterday and spent several hours with Jeff going through each one of them and looked at all the deficiencies.
And I can tell you the one at 14th Street, that's right. The one at 14th Street, you can stand there on that, you can move that rail that far. And it's, we gotta get that fixed before we release any more money to those guys.
Correct.
And it's pitiful. So.
I talked to him, we were dealing with it yesterday, Tommy called us, we went out and looked, I talked to him late, I talked to the contractor, the owner of the company late yesterday, told him what the concerns are. He's a little bit puzzled because he said he's had, some meetings with the city, he said he was told they were okay, some of the first phase, and then.
Who told him it was okay?
I'm gonna set up a meeting probably next week with the owner and Mario and Tommy and myself, and we're gonna sit around the table and get to the bottom of what's going on and where we gotta go to get this fixed. But he is aware that there are issues.
North Florida has a contract, number signed, not the builder. Who got the contract?
Who built the walkovers?
I know who built them, who had the contract. I think he said it out.
I don't know, sir.
I can't think of it from,
The gentleman named Mitt, I know that.
I know, but I thought whoever had a contract on it, he said it out to the people building it. I could be, but I didn't think it was the same.
Well, I can tell you that we shouldn't be sitting here talking about how poorly they were done, because any contractor worth his salt would not have even put in for the final money, first of all, and second of all, he wouldn't have allowed it to be built this way. I'm literally talking about the pickets. Some of the pickets down some of the rows are an inch to inch and a quarter from touching the top rail. There are so many put in. They're only 2x2s. When you put a 2x2 on the side of a deck or anything like that, you look at the wood grain on the end, and you don't go between the grains. You go across the grain so that it doesn't split. They're split. They've got bolts going into the pilings that split out the side of the piling because they were. It's just pitiful. And I can tell you, we shouldn't pay anything until it is really done and done well.
Absolutely.
And I don't care if they have to take all the rails down and redo them. I don't care. That's their fault for doing such a shoddy job. Yeah, so I've said my piece.
Well, we're gonna have a meeting with them next week and we'll figure
It's
out what we're
terrible.
gonna
the issues that I saw were significantly different on the second set of walkovers than the first set.
Right.
So,
The ones I saw, now, I didn't walk down every one of them, but the 14th Street one
Yeah.
I did, because when I'm on my walk and you look down that walkover, you think, well, wait a minute, somehow they got the post off in or something. I mean, it's just, that one is glaringly.
It's terrible. Some of them are pitiful.
Yeah, but we have an inspection, which is part of the contract. So I hope that whoever is the inspector has the same quality eye that we have.
We've had that discussion internally with Dewberry, Josh and myself and.
Okay.
So, I
So
can tell you.
that ultimately lies with you, but with us, if we aren't pleased with what we see and y'all are okay with it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I did talk to him about some of the alignment. There was one of the walkovers that wasn't at a right angle. He mentioned something about having some debris he couldn't drill, so he had to shift the post. But he had already, all the other posts already set, so not making excuses for him.
Well, did he get that signed off on? Somebody, did he say? I mean,
That was.
or he just decided to do that?
Oh, yeah, they probably just decided to do it at the time. So we're aware of the situation and we'll figure out what we gotta do.
Okay, we'll I think you hear what we're saying.
Yes, sir.
I got one.
Go ahead.
See me after the meeting then, how about that?
Okay.
I said, I just wanna do something about stormwater.
Okay.
I looked at the plans and I found some more things that wasn't on the plans, I wanna go and read and find out how we should go about that, that wasn't checked.
Well, I can tell you, FEMA dictated, a lot of what was being included in that stormwater. They went through, well before my time, but they went through and identified the pipes that were to be looked at and inspected. So we might have a little bit of a roadblock with FEMA, but I'll take a look at what you.
Yeah, let's don't be just, anyway, there's some sewer pipes in my neighborhood that's not on that map up there that they didn't check. And I wanna see how we go about it, or if they were supposed to, but now you say FEMA, so. Okay. Yeah.
All right, anything else to do, Barry? All right, moving on, next is resolution 20-42. We have a motion to read by title only.
I make a motion to read by title only resolution 20-42.
Second. Lindsay, please read.
A resolution of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, approving a contract and a notice of award with Roberts and Roberts, Inc. for the dedicated beach parking repair in the amount of $87,998.60.
Before we motion to adopt, is there any questions or comments? Everybody know what we're, this is in front of the Toucans, or what used to be known as the Toucans parking area. If there's no further questions or comments, is there a motion to adopt?
I make a motion we adopt resolution 20-42.
Motion second, call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Ms. Call?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Keith?
Yes. Can we get a bathroom there again, or no?
Eventually we will.
Eventually, but not in this project.
Okay.
Next is 2043, sidewalk. Is there a motion to read by title only?
I make a motion to read by title only resolution 20-43.
Second.
Thank you. Lindsay, please read.
A resolution of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, approving a contract and a notice of award with Bonavic Construction LLC for the sidewalk repairs in the amount of $314,926.75.
Okay. Before we adopt or ask for a motion, on sidewalks, when we put our sidewalks back, what are we gonna do for people that are building along 98 that drive over them, or not so much drive over them, but if they destroy them? Are they responsible for them? Okay, so we're gonna take pictures, we're gonna protect them so that we don't CO somebody without them fixing that.
It's basically our responsibility. Once we put it in there, if we don't watch them, they're not gonna volunteer to go back in, so we'll
Okay,
have to.
let me tell you what's gonna happen on the stretch of our sidewalks now if we don't do something. In front of Sharon, your place was on 13th Street, is that correct? Corner of 13th or 14th? Sharon's Cafe.
It was between 11th and 12th.
11th and 12th. Between 11th and 12th and 12th and 13th, sidewalk is out by the edge of the highway. They're starting to build there, and there's at least a foot drop off on the inside of the sidewalk. What's happening, where they're building that little small house, they're driving over that, boom, falling down, and they're gonna, well, that's not on the list, it's gonna get, and everywhere the sidewalk was close to the road, in the original sidewalk plan, we made it 6 inches thick. DOT said that this should be 6 inches thick, where it was right up next to the road. Well, that's helping, but it's also that they're chipping away at it, and if we don't I don't know what we can do, but either DOT, maybe we can ask them, would they come up and beef up their shoulders? Have y'all seen, have any of you seen, right there, that's a significant drop off on the backside of our sidewalk. And all those construction vehicles are going, and it's eating it up. So, we might wanna look at especially those two blocks, because it's obvious what's going on there.
We'll get Tommy to go out there and photograph it so that we have a record of it.
Record of it.
And then I'll check with David to see what kind of specification we had. for
Maybe
sidewalk.
DOT would come in there and fill that in.
A lot of that happened when they were cleaning up those woods behind, like where Gulf Foods was.
Yeah.
And back behind me, all that heavy equipment was going right through there and
Well,
cleaning
maybe
that
that's
up. That's when a lot of that happened.
Well, I do notice now where they're building that one small house, it's the only house being constructed in those. But you can see where they're using it.
Yep.
And it's continuing to work away at it.
What do we do when you like to build the condos? I mean, it's really tell them they maybe hold off and let the condo finish and then put the sidewalk, or we finish the sidewalk, because you know that's the only way to get it to someone.
Some of them, it is the only way, but I know when they were originally, of course, the level of construction to compare to what we're dealing with now. But I just hope that we protect them.
I want to too, but like them two condos, they got the big
Well,
court, I don't think you not tell them not to get on them, I mean, just.
Are you talking the club?
Yes.
See, that's not even, the club's not even on our sidewalk lane.
What's the next one, down there, other side of Sheriff? The one that's
I
got the
think
blue
each
sheriff on it.
of the condos have put their own.
They put their own
down
in, yeah.
front.
That is there, not the city.
The condos do, like the club.
Yeah.
That's the only one, you're talking about down there across, almost cattywampus from, where Toucan used to be?
That's.
Summer
next.
House?
Well, both of them, I think.
They, Summer House has got a sidewalk.
One that's got blue chairs sitting up on it now. You go by, there's something blue up on it, that's the one that's got all the two forklifts sticking out there.
Oh, yeah, that's just a single house, right?
No, this is a condo. 14th, 15th.
That's gotta be the club, that's the only one there.
Well, do you say they own that sidewalk as well?
That sidewalk, yeah, there's no sidewalk at all, it's hard to walk along there. They got a fence?
Yes, got a fence across.
That's the club. Yeah, see, they haven't put in, but they don't have to put it in until they get a CO, unfortunately. But that's their responsibility to put that in.
Yeah, they had one before.
I just want to bring up, I hope we protect what we put in. It's $314,000.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. All right, is there a motion to adopt resolution 20-43?
Make a motion, we adopt resolution 20-43.
Second.
Second, thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Ms. Call?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Keith?
Yes.
Next is resolution 2044. Do I have a motion to read?
Make a motion, reread resolution 20-44. By title only.
Second.
Motion second, please read.
A resolution of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, approving a contract and a notice of award with Bonavit Construction LLC for the Welcome Center in the base cost amount of $404,973, except deductive alternate option amount.
Okay, Mario, before we adopt, I think we need to have some discussion.
Yes, sir. Mayor, within the packet, you have a spreadsheet that shows the base bid and then all the alternates, the numbers from 1 to 27. The architect of record has put together different options for you to consider. Staff is recommending the one that says M&M option, keeping in mind that from where it says Bonavit 1 to Bonavit 5 along the top, those are all options within Bonavit's quote. You can't accept everything because some things would get double credit, so What the architect has done is given you 5 or 6 different ways of doing it. What they recommend, and also staff recommends, is the option that says M&M option, which gives you a total price of $321,653. That option gives you the original height of the original building. It gives you the same quantity of windows of the original building. What it does is it goes from a storefront aluminum to a fiberglass, and it's basically a lesser cost option for the windows. It changes out the roofing from a true concealed fastener to an exposed fastener. It takes your ceiling from actual tongue and groove decking to a hardy board decking, and then on the interior it goes from tongue and groove decking to a lay-in ceiling for the ceiling. It changes the materials for your countertops from solid surfacing to laminate, and it changes your doors from solid core doors to hollow core doors. Just trying to catch all the items here. I already mentioned the windows. It changes the footers and galvanized and stainless steel. So there, you can read through there the whole list, but option M&M gives you pretty much the exact same look for $321,000. If you want to save an extra $6,000 and change, you go to the option next to it, which is Bonnevic 5, that gets you to $313,000. But that does reduce the overall height of the building by 2 feet. It reduces the number of windows and the number of panes. Instead of having four panels of glass, it goes down to 3 panels. Instead of having a glass light over the door, it goes to no glass light over the door. So those are the 2 options that staff felt you would probably want to look at the most. And then the drawings that you have within your packet, everything from the M&M to the left represents the taller building. The one option to the right is the one where it's a little bit shorter. And then the CGM and the GAC are the alternate prices that we receive from other contractors.
One question I have that is still, if you're looking at the 2 drawings.
Yes, sir.
The original drawing had 6 window fronts.
Correct.
Okay. The second drawing has 4 window fronts.
Correct. The
What
six,
is M&M, what does M&M have?
M&M has the 6 window fronts.
I like the 4. Kimberly likes the 4.
Okay. So we can reduce the number of windows without too much work and
That's what I
actually
mean, that should take.
receive a little bit of a deduct, but keep the height.
The height, I think, is critical, but
Okay.
personally,
No worries?
we should save. I mean, I don't know what I don't know, but I think we could save.
It'll probably be $1,000, give or take. You're replacing it with wall
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah, I
everything
understand.
else, so it's not a 100%.
That wall's gonna be cheaper than glass, I think.
Most certainly.
Oh,
Now, are we keeping the same panes as far as before?
Yeah, I think what you're recommending is the taller building.
the
which has
taller
the
building,
4
and
panes.
just take out, in other words, it would look,
Take out that.
it would end
and
up
that.
with 4 panes instead of 3, but just take out the 2 panes. Now, that's just my suggestion.
Well, if Kimberly likes it, I like it.
I talked to Kimberly about that,
That's
and
what I like.
she did like it,
That's what I
and
like.
that's why I'm suggesting.
I'm behind you back.
But I really think that much glass is unnecessary.
And leave everything else like
Just, or is that,
M&M.
M&M, just take out
Just
those,
take out the
the
4
2,
windows.
yeah, have 4 in the front instead of 2.
I'm agree with that.
Okay,
Is everybody good with that?
If y'all are okay with that, what we'll do is we'll get with the contractor, but basically it's gonna be south of 321.
Oh.
Less than 321.
I'd like to ask a little minor question. Who oversees I know with this building, that's like their product, who oversees it, how this building's gonna be built and how to keep up with what's going on? Do we have a code? I mean, our building inspection law gonna make sure it's done the way we say it's supposed to be done, or
The building department, keep in mind, the building department just makes sure that it gets its permits. It's not really a quality type control for that, because this is it's a Parks and Rec building. That would be Tommy's department, so Tommy and crew would
Somebody
be
from the city.
responsible. Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
that's my question.
Somebody within Tommy's crew, but also the architect. The fee for the architect includes quality control and fabrication of this building, so it does include that.
Okay, and
That is within all of these prices.
and that, what company is that you said?
DAG Architects.
But we will have somebody from DAG here make it, okay. I was just asking, thank you. Mark.
Is there a motion to adopt resolution 20-44?
Should we adopt it with
I'm gonna make the change.
M&M
Yeah,
option?
I make a motion, make a vote on resolution 20-44 with the M&M option with the 4 windows instead of the 6.
So,
Have a motion second. Is there any, other comments? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Keith?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Mario, number 4 is you.
This is, again, we're going after the CDBG grants. It's due at the end of the month, and this is one of the last things that we have to get before council. It gives people options to come in and basically provide input. It provides the outline on how they go about doing it. It gives my contact information, and it gives them the process. This is for CDBG. It's due on November the 30th, which is why we've got it here before us today. If you're okay with this process, all the questions and answers as we do the grants, we'll go through this.
Any council reason to want to hear, I think this is nothing more than what we've been talking CDBG for. Or is there anything, I'm not sure, what do you want, is this?
We need the council to adopt this as a process, so that we can submit this process to the state within CDBG.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to adopt, and I think it would be nothing more than, does it have a name, a proper name that needs to be part of the motion? Or do we simply refer to it as CDBG?
The Citizens Participation Plan. The participation plan?
Well, I don't know, I'm trying to get it, if we're gonna
Just
take some action, you gotta help us,
Yeah.
so somebody will know.
If you'll call out that it is the Citizens Participation Plan.
Okay, that's what I wanna know if that was. All right, well, unless there's questions, this is something we've talked about and we'll continue to. But, this is one of the steps in the process to move forward. Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adopt the City of Mexico Beach Citizen Participation Plan.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further comments or discussions? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Keith?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, number 5, Mario.
Mayor, we've been working on the RVs, and this is something that helps clarify some of the issues that have been questioned over the last couple of weeks in reference to some RVs that are remaining after the home is completed, and the use of those RVs in some way, shape, fashion, or form. So legal counsel and staff, looked at some things to help define if the RV has transitioned to an auxiliary structure as opposed to an RV that is just being stored on the property.
The ordinance in this package, it's not for a vote today, it's just a kind of conversation starter. But it addresses the rules in your city code, not the rules in your land development code. So the city code is how are you using your RV? The land development code is how are you building on your property? The land development code is where the accessory structure consideration comes up, but we thought it would be simpler to address the rules in the city code that we've talked about in the past. That's where the 14-day limit on occupancy is. It says you can store an RV, but you can only occupy it for up to 14 days a year. But what we realize as we look closer and closer at that is, aside from just trying to clean up the rules to make them more easily applied, there was a conflict where it said occupancy included overnight sleeping or parking, but we also had a rule that said storage was allowed. So we knew we were gonna have problems enforcing this. We had a rule that said you can store, but another rule that said you could only park for 14 days. So this ordinance would fix that. It gets rid of the concept that you can only park an RV for 14 days. Instead, it focuses on how it's being used. And the goal of this is to differentiate between someone who is just storing their RV and doing basic maintenance and somebody who is using it on a regular basis at their property. So it doesn't change the 14-day limit. It doesn't change these other exceptions like you're using it during construction, but it changes the definition of occupy so that it doesn't have that internal conflict, but also so it adds some details about what would be considered something that counts towards your 14 days. So what we put in here, and feel free to just suggest something different or discuss this, but what we put in it is, in addition to sleeping in it, the things that would count toward your 14 days would be if you're using it for some purpose other than maintenance or cleaning, if you have connected water or sewer to it, or if you're keeping the slides and awnings open on it. And those aren't immediately violations because you did it one day. It just means that doing those things counts towards your 14 days.
Well, here's my concern, and it has been since Mike. That motorhomes and campers are becoming accessory structures. And for some reason, we have found it, or what appears we have found it difficult to think that if they are not used for their intended use, meaning a camper or motorhome, then there's no violation. And I want to refer to the one inside the fence, only because it is, it's, there are others, but that one, it is set up in a way, whether or not there's water and sewer to it, it is, to me, it is in a permanent location and is clearly is an accessory structure. It is not something that can be used for weekend camping. It's never been moved. The awning is up, the slide is out, the little house, that whatever that little thing is that's built next to it. Under pre-Michael conditions, the administration and the staff and the council and the code officer would have never, that would have been cited. I don't know, I don't truly understand why it's not now. But it's not. So if we're not, if that's not a violation, to me, it should be, because if that's not a violation, there's no reason then that you can put your camper inside a fence or inside a pole barn and fence it in, and they become accessory structures. And I hope that's not what we want.
So the land development code, you do have that opportunity currently to make that interpretation, issue a violation like that. We had some thoughts or concerns that it would be difficult to establish that a vehicle is a structure, but we fortunately have defined recreational vehicle in the land development code as it's defined to be a portable structure. It's clear that it could be. It's just a matter of, it's a difficult case. You need a lot of good backup materials to show that it has truly transitioned to an accessory structure, because there isn't a set test in land development code. It would just have to be based on common sense, general understanding of what the terms are, and staff, for whatever reason, after viewing that property, has stated that she doesn't think, Kathy doesn't think it's a violation. I don't know enough to second guess that, because I haven't seen the property. There's enough in the land development code that if it is convincingly being used as an accessory structure, it can be.
What else could it be, how else could you interpret that? If it's not, it is clearly not stored in a way that it can be used for weekend camping without taking, plus it's never been moved. To my knowledge, I can't speak 100% for that, but it is, if that's okay, are we going to say then if someone puts one inside their fence and it's not hooked up, that's okay? Surely we're not gonna do that.
Mario and I actually looked at different wording that we might put in the land development code to make it more clear what's allowed, what's not allowed. But in the end, this language in the city code that we provided seemed like a more straightforward fix. But we certainly can do more with land development code. Again, just to.
Well, again, we've had this language that we've had, y'all. I guess if we're gonna leave it up to the interpretation of the code officer, then we need to put language, because to me, it is the way it's written now, it is a clear violation. For me, I'm not the code officer, nor am I the administrator. So that's why I brought it up several weeks ago. If we need to change something to not allow for the storage, conventional storage of campers. I mean, I know some that are being used, motorhomes that are being used right now that are nothing more than an office under a house. They're used that way. That's why they're there. They're hooked up. We haven't cited them. I think that we need to either give some clear direction to tell the code officer that there are violations and get something done about it. Because if not, you don't think that the next one that's inside the fence, well, we're gonna tell them, it's okay.
I can remember some years back when we wrangled through all this, and it was a hot button item. And we came up with this, what we had pre-Michael, and it worked well to keep it under control. I do not understand why people think that an RV, if you have it in a fence where it's contained, and you cannot get it in and out without removing sections of the fence, then what possible reason would you have to have an RV that's supposed to be mobile to go out somewhere unless you're using it for an accessory structure, which we agreed after much wrangling we shouldn't be allowed to use. So I actually agree with Al. If it's inside a fence, then it's not a portable RV. It is a stationary structure that the only reason to have it there is to use it as a living quarter. And that's not what we as a community finally wrangled on. So I don't understand why we suddenly have this problem with these RVs after Michael, when we actually got it cleared up before Michael. So it doesn't make sense to keep adding and adding all these little minutiae and details to this. It worked before Michael. Why doesn't it work now? We opened ourselves up to the problems of RVs when we decided as a city to allow people in the aftermath of Michael to use them to live in. And that was all fine and should have been, but it's time to clear this up and get these RVs where people are illegally living in them out of here. So to keep adding to an ordinance and nitpicking at this, you're either using it as an accessory structure, which you're not supposed to, or it's parked in a driveway where you can get in it and drive off and go camping somewhere. It seems to be a simple thing, like you're saying, and if we're going backwards to what we wrangled out before, then I think we're making a mistake.
So if it's being stored in a way that cannot be removed, that's enough to issue a violation as an accessory structure. The issue is, and I don't know the exact details, but our code enforcement hasn't viewed it that way.
But code enforcement is supposed to do what the council and the city says.
Can you just add, can't be kept behind a permanent structure, must be licensed and insured?
When I say it hasn't viewed it that way, what I meant was, I'm assuming that code enforcement has looked at this enough and thinks that it can be taken in and out with reasonable effort. I mean, if it's completely enclosed, that should be enough.
I think one key is have a driveway with a gate that can be in and out. I think that's one of the key things you're worried about on 15th Street.
Well,
This is behind
I'm
the
worried
house.
about that one, and then any others that decide they want to put it behind the fence and let them sit there. I mean, first of all, they don't meet the setbacks. Either they're an accessory structure or they're used for the intended use that they were manufactured, and that's for camping. They're not made to set up in somebody's yard to be used any other way.
No, I understand what you're saying there. What I'm saying for it, there's some people that don't have the room from the fence to the road to have their vehicle. That has to be down the driveway, not parked behind someplace that's got a gate. Should be able to do that. So these people should be penalized because we got a few people doing it wrong. Now, I am a RVer for 40 years, and I've had every type of RV there is, just about. I have one concern, and the main concern I have is making sure my RV is hooked up electrically to keep climate control, either too hot or too cold. I understand about this, it shouldn't have sewage, it shouldn't have water hookup or whatever. And I do recognize that some people has an area that the only place they got is stored. The control is, again, is you go down now, down the road, and you see slide outs there where you see the hookups, but of sewage and water. You know somebody's doing something there. You got a place like you talking about, Al, that, matter of fact, that house you talking about now, as they build a house on the upside, gonna make it a lot harder to get out.
You know, if it's a duck and it quacks like a duck and it waddles like a duck, it's a duck. It's really pretty simple. I don't get the code officer saying that it's not I just don't understand that. But if we've got the right language down so that the code officer, that is clear that it is, then I guess that's what we have to do, or the administrator has to say, here's the city's interpretation. I don't think the code officer needs to have the unless you agree that it's not. I think that it's your responsibility to say this is the city's interpretation of our codes. If the code officer has a undecided opinion, then he'll sit with you and say, hey, here's what I'm up against. What's the city's position on this? I don't think it ought to be.
In working with legal counsel, the reason that we have the draft before you is to further define it, which is why it says extended panels extended is shown that you're actually utilizing it, you're not just storing it. Connection to water is showing that you're utilizing it, not just storing it. Connection to sewers, you're utilizing it, not just storage. Making it accessible is showing that it's not just stored permanently, but again.
Well, I'm for that language so that we can have a clear understanding from code, from the city, from folks that are here. I did not send all of you the email that I received. I sent it to Nick and but not long after our last meeting, I had a citizen, a property owner send me an email that says, hey, it looks like I'm not gonna be able, why would the city, I thought I could put my camper at my house and use it. Well, that stems from what is perceived as being done on 15th Street. And if we don't do something about that, that's what's gonna happen. That's exactly what's gonna happen.
Well,
In my opinion.
I went and looked at the camper on 15th, and I went in the gate, and in the fence, they've got a handle on they've got a handle on a post. They pull that up, the panels come out. That's what they're saying is their ingress, egress, whatever. That's how they get in and out if they so desire to do it. The sewer was not connected. The water was connected. The power was connected. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know how you say it's got to be a gate if they have prepared the fence so that they can use that as a gate and they don't want a gate. Gates are expensive. I don't know. All I can say is that it's not as easy a thing, and I'm not really sure. For me, I've got a camper like Bobby, and right now I've got it extended out and I've got it connected to electric. But I'm fixing to connect it to water because I want to clean my septic tanks out. I want to make sure my septic tank is
Temporary.
It's a temporary, but does that count against my 14 days?
Again, we also left if you're going into the camper to get it ready for a trip, if you're going into the camper to check on things, again, incidental, getting it ready for a trip is not utilizing it. What we're trying to do is define utilizing it.
Well,
You said it was hooked to water.
it was hooked to water.
Why is it hooked to water?
I didn't ask them.
That would indicate that they're using it for some purpose, like living in it.
It could mean that they want to go in there and clean it every once in a while. They don't have to run up the hose every time. I don't know.
We went for many years without people having to hook to water to do any kind of maintenance on it. So why suddenly is it now necessary?
Well, if you're gonna clean it and you've got a camper sitting there with a sink in it, and all you gotta do is hook the hose up to it, instead of running a bucket of water out there and going back to your house every time and washing it out, you can wash it out right there, dump it in the gray holding tank, and then, you know, if the gray holding tank gets full from cleaning it out, you ought to be able to hook up to your sewer and dump it in there, because that is maintenance. You're not actually using it, you're not living in it. Listen, don't get me wrong, I'm not for saying that we ought to be able to let people live in their campers. I'm not saying that at all, and I don't want people to live in their campers, other than the ways that we've outlined for them to do it. They're under construction or whatever format we've already set up that's legal. But, I mean, do you keep water to yours all the time?
No. I have in the past, but I quit doing that. I don't have it hooked up to sewage. Matter of fact, I moved to Cleveland. Right now, I don't have it hooked up to electricity. But I do keep it hooked up to electricity, and I keep my air conditioning turned up high, or my heat is turned down low, depending to keep anything from happening. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure, because I can't tell exactly if for any purpose other than maintenance or cleaning, I mean, this doesn't take away from your 14 days of being able to use it. And so if I go out there and connect my water to clean it, that doesn't count against my 14 days.
And the thought process on just focusing on city codes, we didn't want to make too many changes. And we thought, you don't really need a violation of the city code and land development code. And that this change would be broad enough to probably capture the questionable situations we're seeing. But we certainly can talk about the accessory structure approach. And I mean, I'm looking right at some language we worked on that we didn't advance to you that we just build on and add to what is no longer a camper, what's become an accessory structure. But again, the thought was, we dealt with it here, focused on the conduct, how they're using the camper, probably covers things well enough without having to change two different sets of rules. And in the end, we only need one violation, we don't need violation under both codes.
Well, I don't know how you justify whether the fence is made to where you can take a section out of it, move it if you want to, whether that, I don't know how you handle that. I think it'd be hard to prove that they don't have a way to get it out. They do have a way to get it out. It's not the way that I would do it, or anybody else. And it appears that what they're using it for is what the mayor
And
said.
that's why they all, to me, that, what you just said is exactly why it's an issue if we don't stop it. That's exactly why, because it's not what you would do, it's not what any, if you were gonna use it routinely, you
So
wouldn't
if
do all that.
if they went out there, if we said, okay, well, you don't have a gate, then if they go out there and put a gate in, then they're okay. I mean, all they'd have to do, they wouldn't have to move their camper, they'd just have to put a gate in.
Here's all I'd say to that. In this community, in communities where there's zoning and regulations, I've never seen where you can put a camper in your backyard. I've not personally seen where that would not be questioned by the code official, and that there would be, this is the only time, to my knowledge, in Mexico Beach that it's been done this way. But due to the camper issue, if this is going to be allowed, because I don't think it's used as a routine camper. If that was so, they wouldn't make it that difficult to use. They wouldn't have the slider out, they wouldn't have the water hooked up, they wouldn't have any of that. They'd have it out there where you can get to it, like most people, as you just said. So the next one that puts one in the backyard, I guess that'll be okay, as long as they got a way to get to it.
Well,
That's what's gonna happen.
I'm just saying it's not as easy to me, it doesn't seem as easy a process, because, you know, all they would have to do to be legal is put in a gate, close the slide, and disconnect the water.
Legal,
Right?
legal which way?
I mean, they would be legal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with putting it behind the fence, because there's a lot of people behind the fence, or at least some people behind the fence, because that's the only place they got it, and they, you know.
Yeah, I researched several other codes from other cities, other counties, or just general materials on this. And some cities actually, what they're focused on is they don't want it to be the driveway, and they want it to be behind the fence, because we're really, what some cities are focused on is they don't want people to see it.
Right.
So there's not a uniform approach, there's not a one size fits all, there's different approaches from different cities.
And so I'm just trying to add to the conversation, because the sheer difficulty of Kathy's job, I mean, we gotta figure out a way to make her job where she doesn't know what to do, because it's clearly, it's got a way to get in and out. So You know, I think if we're concerned about these particular people and setting a precedent for other people, I think we gotta do is, we gotta go, okay, look, you can get out of your fence, but it's not a gate. It doesn't appear that you can get out of your fence, so put in a gate, close the slide, unconnect it from water if that's where you're gonna keep it. But I don't know how you enforce whether they're in violation or not. I mean, does anybody else know? I mean, are we gonna send a private detective and, you know? I mean, I'm just saying, it's not an easy thing to do. I agree with the mayor that if they're using it improperly, they shouldn't be doing it, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it. They should get a notice. But I think we gotta be real careful about what we say and how we do it. Because you know, anybody using it for an office that's actually not working on that property, that's a violation. So if we know that, then Kathy could write a violation if we know that they're using it for an office and it's
Well,
connected.
they're using it. Office may be a wrong.
Well, yeah, but they're using it.
using it.
So that's violation. And that's plain. But
Well, when you're riding through the city and you're looking for code violations or being involved in the code world, and you see something out of line in terms of a camper, whether it's hooked up, I think we have to refocus on what is a violation. I think that we need to be more inquisitive and find out what it is, or either just cite them if they're using that, or talk to them about why is it hooked up? Why is it running? Why is it the same way every day? A code officer has a responsibility to have a sense of the city and where these things are, and I think our code officer does that. I'm just saying, I'm totally surprised that this is not, I guess we now have talked to where it's really not a violation, but I think if we see more of them, then maybe that'll make it more of a violation, I don't know. So I think we've kicked that.
I want to kick it when you get through.
I'm through kicking, I'm definitely.
Are you through kicking, Bob? Throw up your hand.
Till you get started.
Well, I ain't gonna quit. I don't think we need to change it. This is my opinion, this, and I like to ask Nick, who did you get with to write this? Or who, I like when Mario said staff. I like when he says that, I don't know. Who come up with this idea?
Mario and I worked on it together, and I was actually struggling a little bit with some of the wording, and Mario helped finalize it, had some good suggestions.
So, this is me talking now, just outright, you have not looked at none of these campers, went and looked at them, Nick,
No, I haven't.
Our little stroll is all we done, just on the stroll. To me, when we told Kathy to go check this out, you did. You told me, you thought it was a violation, and she went, and she said that it was not a violation. I think right then and there, we should have dropped this situation. It's my opinion now, because I also went over there and knocked on the lady's door. Ma'am, you got a lot of talk, and I said, do you mind if I look at your camera? She said, not a bit. I didn't know this lady. We went around the side door, husband come around the back door here, had gallbladder surgery here, and let it tell it to you. There was no water, no sewage hooked up. Reached over there, her husband did, and grabbed the handle on that fence. She called it some kind of breakaway. And when he picked it up, every one of the damn slats fell out of it. To me, what Kathy said was the truth, and I think it should drop. I don't think the man's in violation, I don't think the lady's in violation, I don't want no more camping. I think that's one thing we need to get rid of, is the camping situation. I think Kathy's doing an excellent job, what she does, especially going around and seeing it, and we shouldn't have seconded it out. I think this right here, Nick, to me, is uncalled for. That's my opinion. I think we need to, I think we're going, this is just me, I think we're going to leave this like it is, and let's move on. with whatever we got to move on. And not no more, the camping situation's gonna be a thorn in our side till we get rid of all of them, and camping's doing it little by little.
Anybody else?
I went to the property as well, and, when I was there, the only thing hooked up to the camper was power. And the lady explained to me how, I didn't go over there and pull up the handle, but she showed me where you lifted the handle up and the fence fell away, and you could pull it out that way. According to what code is, I would have to agree with Kathy where it isn't in violation by what I saw. But I think I think it's always gonna be a problem with these campers. I don't think that situation's gonna go away. But I agree with Jerry that I think Kathy's doing a good job. But until she knows this, and this has to be that way, then she can't say someone's in violation unless it's absolutely written this way or that way. But according to how it is now, I would have to agree, and they are not in violation the way I see it. Unless, like Darryl was saying, they have to put in a gate that make the difference. I don't know.
Anybody else? I'm ready to move on. Nick, you got any reports?
I do. I wanted to give everybody an update on the progress of the floodplain ordinance review in the state of Florida. When we initially sent it to them about 2 weeks ago, we were hoping we'd get a quick review, but we knew it might take 5-6 weeks. Fortunately, they jumped right on it. They provided comments. We had a conference call on Thursday, worked through the last details. We got a final draft of them yesterday morning, and they responded back. We've got a green light as of just a little while ago, so
10 o'clock this morning.
that will go to the Planning and Zoning Board, just a normal course of review, beginning of December. You should be able to have a first reading, your first meeting December, I think. If you want to, I think we can probably have both readings in December and get that done. Good.
I'm agreeing with that. P and Z board, when they meet, Martin?
They meet on December the 7th, and then you'll have a council meeting on December the 8th. So between your meeting on the 8th and then on the 22nd, we could potentially be 100% complete before the end of the year.
And their comments were not anything about the overall goals you had. They just had minor tweaks on formatting and wording. For the most part, the things we talked more about were suggestions of things they'd like us to consider next, not critiques of what we're doing right now. So we may come back to you later and talk to you about some other language they're suggesting would help us on our ratings, but it all had to do with manufactured housing and accessory structures, and I think for now, it's probably better to finish what we started.
Their comments on manufactured housing, the staff already follows those rules, even though it's not written that way. They already treat a manufactured home just like a home, so they have to be built at the same elevations as a home.
Meetings over the holidays, we're gonna have all of our scheduled meetings, no matter when they fall.
Our next scheduled meeting is December the 8th, which is 2 weeks from today. And then the following meeting is on December the 22nd, which is the same week as Christmas, but it is 2 days before Christmas Eve.
So, I've never been able to take a very big vacation. But I'm trying to take the last 2 weeks of December and the first 2 weeks of January. Probably won't happen. But if I happen to be somewhere, can I do the meeting? I mean, can I make?
The general rule is that if we have a quorum physically present, the council can allow someone to participate by telephone if there are extraordinary circumstances. That usually means health reasons. If it's a vacation, that shouldn't qualify. If it's something in between, that would be at the discretion of the council.
We've never allowed vacations to be the extraordinary circumstance.
No, I wouldn't think that that should qualify.
So the 22nd of December, and we got some stuff we really want to do, like the floodplain thing, yeah, correct?
It would be the final reading of it.
So I'm gonna have to get in my truck, come all the way back from duck hunting and meet.
If we have a quorum, there would not be a need. I mean, if you wanted to be here, it would.
Take a bath before you get here.
And you do have the option, if you want to consider changing that second meeting date, that's at your discretion, it can be noticed in time.
Was anybody else not gonna be? I mean, is everybody, I mean, is there some, no?
We have four.
We have a quorum and then,
That'd be postponed 2 more weeks, so I'm getting stuff done, so.
I'm getting that done.
Yeah, I wanna get it done, I mean, I'd rather come back, I mean, so what you're saying is everybody can't say, well, it's okay if Darryl votes from a distance? That's not the quorum.
No,
Quorum
not
means
within the quorum is 3 people. As long as 3 council members are here, we can still have the meeting.
Anybody wanna go duck hunting?
My point is, if
I wanna stay here and vote.
you want to schedule a meeting, say for, I think that's Tuesday, that meeting. I mean, if you want to schedule for the Friday before, you have adequate time to reschedule.
That would be another thing that you could
Say that
potentially
again.
do, move the meeting. You could have a special meeting on December the 18th or the 17th or the 16th. Basically, have a special meeting the week before to approve this item and or potentially approve the whole agenda. And then not cancel the meeting, but just somehow or another, not everybody shows up for the second meeting.
Well, you could even
I'm
cancel.
favored of that.
You could cancel the meeting.
Well, I'm favored that Darryl wants to go out of town. I am happy. I'm like, Mayor, I'm gonna be here to vote, but if you have it that Friday and you wanna be here, I'd say let's have a special. Or we need to wait after the meeting, the 7th, I reckon, and decide that time.
It'd be better if you did it now because it would give us a chance to notice everyone.
Well, I don't wanna be a pain in the rear.
I'd say let's change it that Friday and let him be here.
So
And cancel the two, just have the whole meeting, have the whole,
Yeah, that's
have the
what I'm
whole
saying.
meeting on Friday, not
Correct.
cancel
Okay.
next Tuesday.
Okay,
So that's the 8th and,
The 8th and the 18th, if you were to move the meeting on the
Yeah, just
22nd
move
to
the
the
second December meeting to the 18th
That'd be, that'd
9
work
o'clock.
out.
at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that way we won't be, have to come back to 22nd. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Double checking our notice rules to make sure we can do that, but I think it's fine. As far as having enough time to notice that.
So you gotta have the proper number of days between the notice.
That's what I'm double checking.
okay.
Nick, while you're thinking about that, have we heard anything else on the case for, the property? What's the name of that street out there?
The subdivision preliminary plat approval.
Yeah, thank you.
We do have legal counsel that was provided by our insurance company, so we're relieved with that. And, they had I think a motion to dismiss pending based on some technicalities, and I don't know that that's been decided yet. Beyond that, there isn't any progress in the case.
Okay. All right. Mario, you're up then.
We talked about floodplains, we've got that. And I mentioned to you about the jetty, so that covers those two. The only other thing that we have is, we received bids for the beach renourishment and the dune infill. We'll have that for the next council meeting. Those funds are coming from, TDC for the beach renourishment component, a grant that provides 75% of the funds, and then the other component is $70,000 to do the infill in between the existing dunes. And I will be reaching out to Department of Emergency Management to make sure that they're okay with the $70,000. And if all of that comes through, I'll bring it to the next council meeting for approval where they can start doing the beach renourishment and those activities. Please do go over to the conference room, because I will have these drawings, which are for the jetty. And then lastly, Dewberry did not mention this during the meeting, but they provided a set of documents for Sunset Park. And this is, again, partial construction drawings. They'll be available in the council chambers for you to look at. It is strictly the site layout with the parking and the building and the ramps actually engineered out so that you see what the true layout is. So we have that available for council, and that is it for me.
I just confirmed, you'll have adequate time to advertise that second reading. We'll run the ad. We'll schedule a paper before we do the first reading, but that's fine.
That's gonna be out of you guys, I can make you make it.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you very much, everyone, for doing that.
Council comments? Anyone?
I got a little light when I was gonna see after me, but they just got that on Sunset Park, Amari, when we gonna maybe hit something my park? I sure, we have a lot of people over, kids been here this last week, I think Thanksgiving, it sure would be nice. If you get started on this, can you get started on mine? The pond, with the bathroom, and maybe some, sir?
Yes, sir, I will work on them as fast as I can. We just kicked off $3.1 million of construction with that one, and we're doing the design on this one. If we can get this one where it's running on its own, then we'll jump on the next one.
I just know we got a lot of kids playing that park this week. Sure would be nice if we got a bathroom.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other council comments? Motion for adjournment.
We'll move.